But it's a mirror image problem. Exactly the same problem. People need to learn to live together next door to each other, people of different backgrounds, and people's children need to be able to learn together. Those two things. Third issue, what else separates us? Transportation separates us. By building these huge networks of highways, we have moved jobs far away from where people live and required our poorest people to drive the farthest to get to their jobs. Not only is their housing unaffordable, their transportation budget is unaffordable. That keeps people from being able to reinvest in their communities, it keeps their children from doing as well in school, it keeps poor people poor. What's the city of Dallas doing about that? Well, a few years ago, I will say with some pride, because of some advocacy by myself and a man named Patrick Kennedy, the Texas Department of Transportation, for the first time in its history, undertook a strategic planning process for transportation in Dallas called City Map. You can go see it, it's online. Just Google City Map and it'll come up. What it said is that it is time for Dallas to stop building more highways and to start investing in other forms of transportation infrastructure that are designed to move the jobs back to where the people are. Again, you see the mirror image. We've all got to work in the same place, live in the same place, and go to the same schools. Now, fourth thing I'm going to say about why you should be hopeful for the city of Dallas is new leadership. This organization was instrumental in helping get new leadership in West Dallas with Omar Narvaez. Omar Narvaez, before he even got elected, had a plan in place to stop the displacement in West Dallas and to create a long-term plan to make sure that gentrification didn't involve displacement of people out of their homes. We were able to hire T.C. Broadnax, the new city manager. T.C., when he was in Tacoma, his previous job, did two things. He did a market value analysis of Tacoma and found the most disinvested neighborhoods in Tacoma. And he made a rule. If you're going to spend an economic development dollar in Tacoma, it's going to go into these disinvested areas. And then he took all the housing money that they had, and he said, hey, if you're going to build affordable housing, it's going to be in areas of opportunity where we're not going to concentrate poverty in our city. Guess what he's doing in Dallas? He's just going to do the same thing over again, and we're going to congratulate him for having such wonderful, innovative new ideas. I think so. Okay, last part of my speech, because I've gone on way too long already. How can LULAC be involved? We need to hear from communities when there are problems. The West Dallas housing crisis, we had the strangest thing. We had people calling my office. Hey, I can't get anybody at City Hall to respond to me. We have people who are going to be out of their houses. We've got eviction notices. When people in your neighborhoods need something, we need you to call the City of Dallas. I'm a firm believer that if people have a voice with their local elected officials, and their local elected officials will do something in response to their needs, that you will get the government that will best serve you. So we need to hear from you. The fastest way to access services in the city of Dallas is philip.kingston@dallascityhall.com. Just one L in Philip. I definitely want to hear from you. There's another thing. The communities in Dallas that are heavily Latino are underrepresented in our local government, in our state government, in our federal government. We need a better system of bringing up voters. I'm sorry to get back to the election. It's going to haunt us until the runoff is over. There's a group that I met with last month called Vote San Antonio. It was very effective in turning out over 9,000 brand new voters in the San Antonio municipal election that elected their new mayor. They're coming to Dallas. They're going to start Vote Dallas here in Dallas. I think that is an organization that LULAC can partner with, particularly to register young voters in our community colleges. And that, as we know, community colleges is where many of our Latino voters are going to school. We need to make sure that those kids are registered and are coming out to vote in November. And I think that that's the way that LULAC can really emphasize, promote the ideas of its members in a way that will get more traction at City of Dallas, state level, and federal level. Okay, did I leave anything out? So you have any questions? Did I cover everything? John Losa, former Dallas City Councilman.
Yes, sir. Councilman, could you talk briefly about an issue that I think is a very good idea, which I know that you are championing at City Hall right now, and that is paid sick leave.
That is the thing I forgot. Thank you, John. Okay, in Austin, last month, the City Council voted to require all employers to give workers earned sick leave. If they work 30 hours, they get an hour of sick leave. They did it by hours, so there are no shenanigans with part-time workers. Part-time workers get paid sick leave also. Most workers above a certain income level already have some level of paid time off. So this is affecting only the poorest workers in our economy. It's service industry workers and construction industry workers. These are single moms, these are people with limited English proficiency. These are the people who are the most likely to lose their jobs if they get sick. And they're the most likely to come to work if they are sick, endangering the rest of us. So this is you will see this, this campaign led by Workers Defense Project, the group that brought you the rest break for construction workers 3 years ago, and a coalition of other community partners. Those communications are going to be happening starting this month, and there will be an opportunity for LULAC to engage in this effort. I think it may even be a ballot initiative. Anybody else?
Hi, Mr. Kingston. Thank
Hi,
you
how
for the
are you?
wonderful job that you're doing.
Good to see you.
Alongside of Omar and Adam and Ronald. I have 3 questions for you, and I want to address the housing issue. Did you know that I was very involved with the gentrification and the eviction, and that Mr. HMK, Ms. Church, was able to sell the house to the tenants. We still are having issues getting city funds to help bring those homes up to par so that they don't go under the charter, 27 charter for fines. But my question is, what happened with the investigation from the FBI? I know they sat in your office for 90 days. We still haven't heard what the outcome was. You were missing $29.9 million, and I understand it was further more than that. So can you share with us what the outcome of that was? First of all. Secondly, security. I was reading an article regarding the FBI saying that the city of Dallas requires, because of the population, at least 3,700 police officers, and we're about 1,000 short of that. Also, will you be running for mayor?
Let me take the third one first. I'm thinking about it. Believe me, if I decide to do it, I'll be right back here. Okay, first one was housing. It was technically not the FBI, it's the OIG of the Housing Urban Development Department. But they are still officed in the building. They are due to release their report in the next week or 2. They haven't really given us a firm deadline. And no, I have no idea where that money went. That was the old administration before T.C. Broadnax. I don't know what to say. Can y'all hear me at all? The second one was police. The idea that we need 3,700 officers is false. We have never had more than 3,400 officers, and there's some indication that that level may even be too high. Now, are we too low today? Probably. But we have a manpower study that is coming to us within the next month to tell us kind of what that right level should be. But the first thing the police chief, the new police chief, said to me when I met with her, I said, "I think you might have a staffing problem." And she said, "How do you know?" And if you look into this issue, police staffing is actually one of the most complex issues in the United States. There are communities that have fewer cops than we do per capita, and they are safer. And there are communities that spend much more money on police than we do, and are less safe. So it's a very strange topic. What was it? That's all three, right?
Yeah, but the housing answer's still not responded. Very vague. Give it to mayor.
Yeah, I'll get back to you later.
Okay,
I gotta go. I'm happy to answer more questions.
very quick question. My name is Renato de los Santos. I work in the LULAC Education Center. We work with a lot of kids. We have a very serious public health emergency. A lot of people don't know about. There's a serious level of suicide and suicide attempts by youth at our high school and middle schools right now here in Dallas. Sunset High School, for those of you who don't know, is the epicenter. Right now we've got a lot of suicide attempts, a lot of successful suicide at Sunset. It's not being publicized, but you need to know that this is going on. Philip, is there a role for the city? Are we working or talking to the school district? Are guns issues here? That's going to be a big issue. It's not happened yet, but it could happen that we could have a loss of young people to the firearms to the schools, or perhaps if our teachers are armed, if someone's getting ready to kill themselves, what better way than to tackle a teacher, take that gun, and do it then? So my question to you is, public health emergency, suicide in the schools, what's going on, if anything, to help address that issue?
Well, teen suicide is primarily linked to two issues. It's insufficient mental health care for teens, and it's ridiculously high access to firearms. So there's a role for the city in both of those. Now, the city isn't supposed to be in charge of either one of those. The state is supposed to be the mental health care provider for students, and you can see what an awful job they've done of that. So this is the same thing that we see with everything, with homelessness, with transportation, with mental health care. All of these are items that your local city government is not supposed to be in charge of. But what we've discovered is that if we ignore them, no one else does anything with them either. So we've become the governmental last resort for everything. And yes, there's a role for us. We would take the lead of DISD to understand how to deliver the mental health care services, and we would partner with groups like Moms Demand Action to reduce the access to firearms that teens have. Okay, I gotta go, but I'll stick around a little while if you have more questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Let's give him a hand. Our next speaker is Paula Rosales. Is she here? Yes. Where are you? Okay.
I saw her.
I did too.
Here she is. She's coming.
Paula Rosales is a former municipal court judge in the city of Dallas. She is a candidate today for community. What court are you running for? County Court of Law number 4. So give Paula a big hand. And I want to say hi to Trinity Garza, former school board member. I did not.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me okay in the back? Hi. Okay, so yesterday, as of 7 p.m., the polls closed for early vote. By a show of hands, can you let me know if you voted early? Okay, very well. This is wonderful. I think that the numbers are speaking for themselves. We're having a really great surge, particularly for the Democratic Party. But this morning, I just wanted to first off say hi. I know many of you throughout the years. We've worked together on redistricting issues. We've worked together on mentoring youth. We've worked together on immigrant rights. I've marched with you during the Mega March and the immigration marches. And I'm just so happy to be your candidate. So as a former municipal judge for 5 years, I had to step down so that I could run. And for the past 5 months or so, I've been running a clean campaign, meeting so many of you, making new friends, making new organization alliances. And what I can tell you is this. Innovative court practices are necessary in 2018. We need to think outside the box. There are a lot of opportunities that as leaders, as elected officials, we can bring to the table and ensure that we are part of the solution. For example, when I was a municipal judge, a community court judge, I heard many stories of individuals who went into bankruptcy, of individuals who had their wages garnished and they couldn't make ends meet. I also heard stories of individuals who might have wanted to appeal an eviction and just did not have the tools to do so. Now, the legal clinics at our law schools, the legal aid programs that we've got around the county are not sufficient, do not have the capacity to take all of these cases. What the courts can do, when we're talking about administration of justice, the courts can certainly bring forth or harness the power of the judicial office to create solutions. And if lucky enough to be elected, I want to bring forth what I call the responsible citizen docket. And the responsible citizen docket is a simple solution. It's simply bringing the law schools. We have experiential programs now outside of the clinics where law students are being trained to appear before the courts. And they're being trained under the leadership of a professor who will be the first lead or the leading attorney in these cases. But once you have the law schools involved in programming, you're able to sit down around the table and say, okay, this is the type of caseload that I'm facing, and is there anything that you can do with both parties? You would be maybe representing the low-income individual in a creditor issue, and you will be sitting at the table with the creditors, whether it's a bank or whether it's a hospital, and try to find that mediated solution, but giving the tools for individuals who cannot afford attorneys, who still wish to navigate the civil court system. We just don't have the resources. Now, unlike the criminal system, unfortunately, interpreters cannot be paid by the courts, right? So typically they are paid by the parties who are before them. And that at times can be thousands of dollars of court interpreter fees. Now, I think that it is not right to ask an individual who just won before a jury or before a court to ask that individual to pay for the court interpretation fee. So if you won, if you just won because you got injured at work, if you just won because you got injured on the road on your way to work, you should not have to pay for the court interpretation fees. And so we need to figure out a way of making sure that that doesn't happen. I'm a first generation American. I understand the challenges of navigating an English language environment, right? And so as a community court judge, as a municipal court judge, I also realize that if you're not English speaking proficient, that does not mean that you don't understand certain things, right? You just need to be given those tools. And I'm going to also be creating a multimedia guide. It's not just going to be a website, it's going to be a Q&A type of website that you can click on. You're going to have experts talking about how do you file a lawsuit, how do you respond to a lawsuit, how do you ask for a continuance, how do you represent yourself in a court. Even if you're not an English speaker, you're going to have access to that information. I'm also going to have a list of all those interpreters, licensed court interpreters that I've worked with in the past that I know of, who are also going to be able to serve individuals who actually at the end decide to hire them. Now, I am asking that on March 6th, you bring 5 friends, you bring 10 friends, you make phone calls so that we can go ahead and, for the first time, have a Latina judge on a civil general jurisdiction event. I appreciate all my colleagues here. It's been quite an exhausting campaign trail. Yesterday we were all at the polls until 7 o'clock. So thank you all for being here. And I will stay behind for questions, and also I have some campaign material to share with you.
Next up is Melissa Bellin. On the ballot,
I am.
Melissa is running for County Court at Law number 2. And here she is.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here this morning. I know I saw many of you guys at the polls working or as election judges this week, so to be here this morning, I'm grateful you all made it. I am running for the court that will be next door to the court that Judge Rosales is just talking about. And currently the judge who's there has decided to retire, so this is an open bench. What these courts do, as she said, they're general jurisdiction, but what we do in those courts is generally anything that's not criminal or family is sort of how we describe it. And what you see commonly are things like car wrecks, you see death cases, you see things that impact people's everyday life that can be the difference between them making that next payment on their home, or being able to make rent, or be able to get to work, or to be able to keep their job. And those things are extremely important to me. That is where my family came from. My family was the family who was getting the foreclosure notice and couldn't afford a lawyer to figure out what to do. The other thing that these courts do are they do appeals from the JP courts. And as many of you may know, that is where evictions happen. That is where small claims happen. That's usually cases where someone is representing themselves because it's not practical to have a lawyer on that case. But we have to make sure that they're getting justice. You see landlords in those JP cases who do 100 evictions a week. And a tenant who has never been in this position before and doesn't have anyone to guide them. And so when those appeals come up, it's incredibly important to me to make sure that we are giving everyone a fair playing field, that justice can be served regardless of whether you can afford attorney or not. One of the things that I'd like to see in our courts is some additional standing orders. For those of you who are not attorneys, one of the things that takes the most time in cases is fighting over what sort of things are going to come in at a trial and how to prepare your case. If I can give everyone a guideline of these are the things that generally come in my court unless you have some sort of special circumstance, that allows everyone to be more efficient. That allows everyone to know where they stand. It allows everyone an even playing field, and it's not a question every time that they come in. The other thing that I'd love to see our courts do is the family courts have moved forward with a lot of forms that are available to the public to help them navigate the system. On our civil side, we have very few of those. Because cases are unique, it's difficult to fit everything into a form. Things that we can do, such as how do you file a motion for continuance? How do you let the court know that you need more time to get a hold of a witness and to be able to talk to them? And one of the most important things I think we need to do here in Dallas County is to make sure that those things are available in multiple languages. Dallas is a wonderful city of people from everywhere. And the fact that our court system is still geared only toward English speakers is something that isn't serving our community.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that at least in my court, when you come in, you know you're going to have that even playing field, you're going to have access to the things that you need, and that I am always going to be the person who shows up to work, remembers where I came from, and wants to make sure that everyone else is getting that same fair shake that my family didn't feel like it. So again, my name is Melissa Bellin. I'm running for County Court at Law number 2. I'm going to also ask you to go find 5 or 10 or 20 of your friends who haven't voted yet. Text them, bug them, keep them on your list all day Tuesday, up until 7 o'clock. Make sure that they get there and cast. I've served Dallas County for a long time on the Democratic side. I was here in 2006 being the person who knocked on doors. And now I'm asking for more. I served as the party's lawyer for 2010 to 2014, and that is where I continue to want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I think the most important thing I can relay to you all is when you're picking who you're going to vote for, think about who is going to be there to help us carry November. For instance, in my race, this primary is all or nothing. It decides everything. There's no Republican opponent. So whoever is elected on March 6th is who your next judge of that court is going to be. But is that judge going to continue to show up and work? I pledge to you that that's what I'm going to do, because that's what I've done the whole way here, and I'm not stopping at you next year. Thank you all. For all the questions, I'll be happy to answer hang around after.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. All right, don't forget, go vote if you haven't, March the 6th. Next up is Dorotha Author. Is she here? No, Dorotha left. Okay. So after Dorotha, we have Judge Carl Ginsburg.
Thank you. Do I need the microphone? Can you hear me? I'll use the microphone. I know. Buenos días, bienvenidos mis amigos, me llamo Carl Ginsberg, soy juez del Corte de Distrito número 193, un corte que oye casos civiles. Yo no oye casos criminales o familias, o divorcios, yo oye casos como dañadas personales, contratos, etc.
You want to try if this microphone works?
Let me try another one. Me trato lo otro. Y también cuando usted vive en cualquier sitio del condado de Dallas, usted puede votar para mí en este concurso. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to my friends. My name is Carl Ginsberg. I am the judge of a district court number 193. It is a court that hears civil cases, does not hear criminal cases or family cases. It hears cases like personal injury cases, contract cases, and if you live anywhere in Dallas County, then you can vote for me in this contest. I have the honor and the privilege of serving this community for the last 11 years, and I hope to do so into the future. Before that, I was for 7 years a precinct chair, and so I have been in the trenches for the Democratic Party for almost 20 years. And I see my friend Regina Montoya here. I want to tell you, I sort of cut my teeth as a Politico volunteering for Regina when she ran against Pete Sessions in 2000. So let's give her a hand. And in fact, Pete Sessions chickened out of a debate with Regina. He wouldn't debate her, and so he had a town hall for him. And so I dressed up in a chicken suit to heckle Pete Sessions. So I am willing to the Democratic Party to dress up in a chicken suit. I want to dwell on a couple of the topics that some of the other candidates brought up. In Dallas County, I'm proud that we have a great judiciary and have been very innovative in helping out folks. I serve on the advisory committee of the Dallas County Dispute Resolution Committee. And what we did was we put together an innovative program where we rely on volunteer mediators. The administration is run in-house by the county. We have a small staff of county employees that work on scheduling of the administration of the program. But we rely on volunteer mediators, and we refer cases that involve low income and what we call pro se, self-represented people to this program. And so it's a great program that allows self-represented individuals to have an opportunity to mediate their case and have an opportunity to resolve it in maybe less of a formal circumstance. And in addition, one thing we have done is a lot of law schools have legal clinics that represent people, but we have also reached out to some of the local law schools to have not just clinics, but sort of like advisory hours. And on Thursdays and Fridays, we have law students under supervision come in, and almost like, like in college you had office hours with a professor. It's kind of like office hours so that people can come and just have a chance to talk to somebody about their case. They might not end up representing them, they may or may not. And that's something in addition to the other various pro bono volunteer legal organizations that we can refer people to. As a judge, we're referees, we're umpires, so we can't help one side or the other. We can only try to make resources available. Ultimately, it's the legislative bodies that really need to do this. Just like my city council person was saying, that some of these